myths and the historical aspects of Agastya, the great sage. Another important aspect which I'll discuss or talk about right at the inceptional stages, the symbolism in Indian literature and historical writings, be it the scriptures or be it what we call the secular literature. There is no binary which is created between the materialistic and spiritual life. I mean, I have found it difficult. I have found it almost impossible to get the evidence of a sculpture in the Indian context where a saint in his contemplative mode is being shown to be Krishkaya, very weak. There is this Western conception which tells us that Indians neglected the mundane life and they were far more inclined towards spirituality. It had a definite imperial agenda behind it. But if that was so, then how is it that the bodies in form of sculptures and reliefs of the Indian saints or seers which are being depicted are very sturdy, very strong? If they neglected the physicality of the life, that should not have been the case. Another important aspect is, let me give you an instance from the Vedas itself, from the Rig Veda. There is this argument that the ancients basically were cattle herders, especially in this early Vedic age, and they were praying to their gods or the deities for cattle. Hey Prabhu, hame gaye do, hame ghode do. What they failed to realize was that the language in which these rishis were composing their hymns or ritas was the most refined Sanskrit. And I think all of us, again, will agree to the fact that refinements in language actually takes place during the advanced stage of a culture, not during the inceptional stage. So the relevance or the symbolism which is attached here in this instance is the cow is a symbol of Bhagavat Chaitanya, divine consciousness, and the horse or a ghoda, he is symbolic of the divine power, Bhagavad Shakti. So you need to be in sync and in synergy with the culture you are speaking of to think in terms of trying to understand the sayings or the compositions of the time. With this, I will start with the contributions of August. I will look at him. Again, another important aspect which I want to emphasize upon is that there is this argument that basically the structure in India was patriarchal. But 30% of the hymns of the Vedas are being composed by women seers. You have the references to Agastya Lopamudra, husband and wife, collectively composing many hymns. In fact, 1.165 to 1.191 of the Rig Veda, all the hymns are being jointly composed by Agastya and Lopamudra. 25% of the total hymns are then composed by women. I mean, there is an equal representation of the male and female. So where is that patriarchy which is being spoken of to criticize the Indian way of life at that stage? Now, since I have mentioned in the title Rishi Agastya, let us look at the relevance or significance of this term Rishi. who can be branded or who can be called a rishi. Is he an ascetic or a recluse or a celibate, as has been the general conception? O Dadi Wala Baba, as we see in the general depictions? Actually, not. He is a saint, he is a seer, he is enthusiastic. He has this urge, the burning zeal to know the ultimate. He is enlightened or is on the brink of receiving that divine light. He is progressive, he is forward looking. And I'm using the term he, but kindly excuse me, this is the way we have been brought up. It needs to be seen in general neutrality. So he can always be coupled with the she. And when we are saying that 30% of the sages who composed the hymns were women, so it applies to both the genders. And most importantly, a rishi is the one who possesses the divine will. What this divine will means, I will speak a little later. He's dynamic. He's not restrained or restricted by a specific ideology or specific way of life. So, mundanity and spirituality both go hand in hand and in sync and synergy in the life of a rishi. The seers or the rishis were seen as the founders of ideals and institutions that influenced and formulated the Indian civilization. August is not only a mere sage of India, but also an influential scholar who is multilingual, who is a polymath. He expertises in so many fields. In the Tamil literature, he has been mentioned as a Siddhar, which means that he is uh, an expert in the arts, various realms of art, as well as in sciences. He's an astrologer, he's an astronomer, he's a mathematician, he's a physician. He is also engaged in the various forms of literature, be it poetics or be it prose. He is somebody who is also the one who excels in the spheres of dance, music, also who can cure people of their ailments and can advise them for the future. So, these are the abilities of a rishi, and we find all these abilities being there, all encompassed, on all encapsulated in the demeanor, the behavior, and the life of Sage Agastya. He's a Chiranjeevi. There are debates as to the lifespans and cycles of these rishis and sages during those times, and it is stated that Agast survived for 4,000 years. It is immaterial whether he lived for 4,000 years or 400 years or a century. What is important is the kind of contributions he made on the basis of the lived experiences of his own as a saint. Again, why there is a debate pertaining to this particular aspect, if I am being a historian, I will look at that aspect also. And it has to do something with the dating of the Rigvedic age in itself. Now, with geomorphologists and other scholars like Michael Dineno coming up with works like The Lost River, Saraswati, they have now established it beyond doubt that the river Saraswati was a roaring river somewhere around 8000 BCE. And it was around 6000 BCE that this river, which has been shown and described as a mother of floods, a queen of floods, a roaring river, started losing its waters. So if we take down two to 3,000 years from then on, then we will arrive at the period of the Indus Valley civilization. I'm not going into the debate of who came first or whether they were simultaneous, or as has been the conservative way of talking about discussing the dates that Indus Valley was then succeeded by the age of the Veda. I'll not go into that. The fact remains that there are substantial amount of evidences which are at our disposal to actually establish that the dates of Rig Veda have to be predated by quite a few centuries from the current established norms. Siddhas also developed in South India the native Siddha medicine system, and the credit for developing this system of medicine actually goes to Agastya Rishi. There are certain Siddha practices, medicinal practices, which are followed even in modern times. Like, for example, the Patti Vaitiyam style of treatment, which is also आपने सुना होगा दादी के नुस्खे हम सुनते थे. So that is the grandmother's medicinal system. Then there is also Natu, Murantu, which is folk medicines, and Mulikai, Narutuvam, which is herbal medicines. All these were established form of healings which were practiced by the physicians of the times, who were called the Siddhas. And the foremost Siddha who excelled in this particular field and was seen as a founder is Rishi Agastya or Saint Agastya. The Tamil Siddhas also were the first ones to develop what is called the Nadi Parthathai, which is pulse reading, to identify the origins of disease. Again, something which is integral to understanding the Siddha form of medicine. Though the IMA discredits this particular form of medicinal science, but there are other agencies and institutions which still continue to accept it. Uh, Now, coming to the parentage and the ancestry of Saint Augustine again, you have to look into two aspects, that is, uh, the mythology or the legendary aspect and the historical aspect. Usually, it is believed that he is the son of Lord or God Mitra and Varuna, who co-jointly are his father, and Urvashi, the nymph, is his mother. But this is the mythological aspect. On the other hand, he has been linked to Pulastya, who is also a relative of Ravan. So he is a relative of Ravan. What is the exact relation? There are two debates pertaining to it, because at one particular place, Pulast has been referred to as the father of Agastya. At the other, in the other source, he has been mentioned as the brother. The two have been mentioned as brother. So their relation in that aspect changes then with Ravan. We know it for a fact that all three are connected to each other by relations. Then he is the brother, according to the mythological tradition, where Mitra and Varuna are being shown as his father. And this elder brother of his is Rishi Vashisht. And he has been mentioned as Kundina, the water jar born. And similarly, uh, the younger brother Agastya is also stated as Kumbhaj, which is a name which is given to him. His spouse, as I have already spoken of, is Lopamudra, the great female sage of the Vedic lore. There are interesting traditions pertaining to how she acquired this name of Lopamudra, and that I'll speak a little bit about in the legendary aspects when we'll talk about some of the important legends pertaining to August, and we'll try and deduce the philosophical and the historical relevances out of them. As far as references to August are concerned, historically, you find him being mentioned in all the Itihas Puran traditions. And the most dominant of these traditions are the two epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. He's also mentioned in the different, I mean, in a country so diverse like India, there cannot be one version of so popular epics. So there are various Ramayanas. Father Kamil Bulke from my university has written a very interesting work, uh, which is very famous also, and that work is Ram Katha. And in that, he mentions that there are 300 different versions of Ramayana which are popular in different parts of India or the undivided Indian subcontinent. Pom Charyu is the Jain Ramayana. And in this text, it is Lakshman, the younger brother of Ram, who assassinates Ravan. And the reason is obvious. Uh, Ramayana emphasizes on its legendary hero Ram, and Jainism emphasizes on the principle of non-violence or ahimsa. So, how can the lead character of uh, a narrative which believes in the doctrine of ahimsa be violent? So, it is not Ram, but Lakshman who assassinates or kills Ravana. Iravataram is the Tamil form of Ramayana written by Kamban. Dashrath Jatak is the Buddhist form of Ramayana. So there are different versions. So in many of these versions, you find references being given to Rishi Agastya. Similarly, in many of the narratives and by narratives of the Mahabharata, he has been mentioned. Uh, in the Tamil literature, he has been, as I've already told you, that in the Shaivite traditions of southern India, he has been mentioned and stated to be a Siddhar. What a Siddhar means, we have already discussed. He is also credited with the invention of the early Tamil grammar and language. And the work which actually compounds or encompasses all these achievements of his is Agatyam. Then the Tamraparna medicine system, and as the name suggests, Tamraparni was another name for Sri Lanka. It was prevailing in Sri Lanka. It was also initiated by August and portions of Tirunelveli in Tamil Nadu and other parts of Tamil Nadu. He played a pioneering role in the development of spirituality in southern India. He is the first saint of northern India who crossed the Vindhyas and reached south. So he, through his actions, actually brings about harmony between the two portions of India. And mind you, traditionally, whenever India has been looked upon, it has always been dissected only vertically in north and south. The western and the eastern portions in the north, in that context, from Gedroshi or Baluchistan, from the borders of Iran up to Myanmar, and in the southern context, from the western sea to the eastern sea, actually become insignificant. So the Vindhyas in themselves are the demarcating line. North of India is branded as north, and the peninsular south of the Vindhya range is being mentioned as south. So he's the first one to cross the Vindhyas and reach the south. And there, what is very interesting is that he's a champion of Sanskrit, composes hymns in Sanskrit, contributes to the culture and traditions of North India. But at the same time, when he crosses the Vindhyas, and reaches south, he also contributes to the culture, linguistics, and traditions of South India as well by composing, first by devising the old Tamil language and then composing the early Tamil grammar. He is also respected across the various faiths within what we now call Hinduism. So he is a popular sage who finds mention and references in the texts of Shaktism, Shaivism, as well as Vaishnavism. He is respected in the Puranic literature. He is also one of the sages who finds references and depiction in the sculptures and reliefs in the Hindu temples of South India and also Southeast Asia. The Shaivite temples of early medieval age from Java in Indonesia are one of the shining examples which show him in the sculptures and in the bas reliefs. The Javanese text Agatya Parva of the 11th century, actually the 11th century version of it remains. In that he is the prime figure and the chief guru or the patron. He is author of many of the Sanskrit texts alongside. He is the author of Agastya Samhita, which is found in the Skanda Puran. He is also the author of Agastya Gita, which is found in the Varaha Puran. He also composed the Dvaid Nirayana Tantra text. So you can see that he is somebody who writes uh, quite vociferously and also composes and is accepted by the various sects. One of his Sanhitas is the Pancharatagam, where he talks about the worshipping of Ram, Sita, Lakshman, and Hanuman. So, incidentally, you are looking at him being otherwise seen as an incarnation of Shiva, eulogizing and praising an incarnation of Vishnu. Uh, this particular work is also being stated or mentioned as the Agastya Sutikshana Samvad. Sections of the Purans also are accredited to Agastya and are also called Agastya Samhita. I've already spoken of the other important Samhitas. Garud Puran in itself is one of the three sections of actually one of the three sections of the Garud Puran is Agastya Samhita, and very interestingly, this Agastya Samhita, which is one of the three components of the Garuda Puran, actually deals with the study and the treatment of gems. So it is an out and out uh, mundane pursuit. When you speak and state that Indian view of life was otherworldly, they were far more concerned about matters of life after death. These evidences can refute them very easily. No civilization, no culture can survive for so long, and that too having or containing that thread of continuity if it was not dynamic or if it is not dynamic. India has been dynamic throughout. It has been resistant to change and has accepted change. Wherever possible, it has, with the will of the intruders, also allowed them to be a part of its own and to share in its blessings, and has this has led to the process of amalgamation and incorporation, not in the negative sense, not through the use of force or duress, but through the will, as I told you. Uh, Now, Again, he is being credited with the establishment of approximately 700 ashramas or hermitages across the length and breadth of India. So, in this context, the Buddhist monastic system, or later on the Matha system as was established by Shankaracharya, must have got influence from his actions. There is a famous reference to his hermitage at Mount Vedure, the western part of the Satpura range. There is also a hermitage of his at Saubhadra on the southern ocean. In the regions of the Pandyas, there are references to his ashramas. He's been connected to the Yamuna. There have been references in context of Agastya pertaining to the city from which I come, Prayag, and also places like Gaya. The Devi Bhagavad Puran refers to his ashramas in Tamil Nadu, specifically in the Tirunelveli region, and the Pothegai hills of Tanjavur and Thiruvananthapuram. There are different legends again pertaining to these ashramas. There are other ashramas which are being referenced and are also being mentioned. One is near Nasik in the small town of Agasthyapuri, which still survives. The town by this name still survives. There is ashram at Sangli in Maharashtra. There is also an ashram or an hermitage of his at Kannauj in Uttar Pradesh. Uh, the famous one on the banks of the river Godavari, I think majority of us are aware of it. And the Agastya Muni village near Rudraprayag. The place is also called Gupta Kashi. So, and then the Satpura range I have already spoken of. He meets Ram, Sita, and Lakshman when they are in exile at a place called Dandakaranya or the Dandaka forest. And there also he has an ashram where he gives an advice. I'll speak of that a little later when we speak of the legends. Uh, so this is pertaining to his ashramas. As far as his name goes, etymologically, Agastya is also being stated as Agasti or Agathyar in southern India. There are different theories pertaining to his name. Some say that it has been derived out of the root Aj or Anj, which means brighten or effulgent one, somebody who is enlightened and who is not groping in darkness, but actually is himself enlightened and is on the path of enlightening others also. Another tradition uh, mentions him as a star, the Canopus, which is the second most shining star after Sirinus. The Indo-Europe, then there is a third tradition which talks about his Indo-European origins, where it is stated that his name is derived out of the Iranian gust, which means something which is foul and sinful. So, in that sense, Agastya means somebody who is beyond sin and is beyond the foulness. So, he is impeccable. Based on the folk etymology in verse 2.11 in the Ramayana, it is being stated that his name has been derived out of the term Aga and Gama, which means somebody who is the mover of the unmoving. And in this relevance, in the contextual relevance, this unmoving is nothing but the mountains. And here, specifically, the Vindhya mountains. So, this is as far as the etymology of his name is concerned. Then there are also debates pertaining to whether there was one Agastya, there were numerous Agastyas spanning across the different time zones in the Indian history, or was there a house of Agastyas? The Matsya Puran is the only source which provides us with the list of gotras, which it calls the Vanshas, related to Rishi Agastya. As I've already told you, that Agastya appears in various stories at various times from the earliest age up to the period of the Pandavas. But there is this great indefiniteness about this fact that whether when we talk about Rishi Agast, so are we talking only of that Agast of the Vedic lore? Because there is an Agast in Puran, there is an Agast in Sahitas, there is an Agast in Ramayana, there is an Agastya who's being mentioned in Mahabharata. And these ages are not simultaneous, they are withdrawn from each other by a substantial period of time. So even if we actually discount the yugas or the eons, as has been the traditional way of dating in the Indian scriptural history, but otherwise also historically, in the strict historical sense, there is this difference. As I've already told you, the myths relate him to Rishi Vashisht, the guru of Ramchandra, who is being shown as his elder brother, and he has been mentioned as Matra Varuna, the son of god Maitra and Varuna. Accordingly, Agastya is mentioned as Matra Varuni, again the younger brother of Vashisht. And the names like Kumbhayoni, Kumbhajanma, born from the water jar. And I think all of you remember, just a few minutes back I spoke of Vashisht being stated to be a Kondenya, so born from a water jar. That again draws both these personalities, this famous sages, together. But what is not yet established is that whether these kind of references mean that he was a descendant of God Mitra and Varuna, or whether he was directly a son of them. Because in the Rig Vedic hymn 189, Agastya of the Rig Vedic lore is being mentioned as the son of a sage called Manya. So if that is the case, then we will have to differentiate between the mythological uh, parentage and the historical parentage. Another important aspect is Dronacharya, the teacher of both Kauravas and Pandavas. He has also been mentioned at a few places as a Kumbhayoni or a Kumbha Sambhava. So there are striking parallels for other dignitaries also who took these kind of titles. So to establish on the basis of these titles that Vashisht and Agast were brothers and they emerged out of a water jar and both were the sons of god Maitra and Varuni through Urvashi the nymph would be far drawn conclusion. Another important aspect is that when you look at the historiography or the historical writings in India, and especially the writings which somehow engage also the mythological and legendary narratives, then there are some works which are written in the Brahmanical traditions and some which are written in the Kshatriya traditions. The ones which are written in the Kshatriya traditions are actually far more akin and reasonable to the human historical sense, because at their core or at their center is the ruler, the king. And you know that right from ancient past, India had this tradition of kings and dynasties actually making the scribes write for them historical narratives or semi historical accounts. The Brahmanical traditions actually lack in this sense because they are unsupported Brahmanical stories and they are worthless chronologically. Now, the traditions in which narratives pertaining to Agastya are written are unfortunately the Brahmanical traditions. To give you an example, the, the marriage of Lopamudra and Agastya, the narrative is being created and written in this Brahmanical tradition. Lopamudra, incidentally, is the daughter of the king of Vidarbha. But ultimately, as the narrative goes, she is married to the Brahmanical sage. The father is reluctant. He doesn't want that his beautiful and charming girl should be married to Rishi. I'm by no means, again, I'm coming back to the same thing. This is a conception which has been made by us that Rishi means he must be an old man and he must have that long flowing beard and is a bit filthy and uncouth. No, that's not the case. That has never been the case. They were very stout, they were very bright, enthusiastic, vibrant people. They were radiant people, and many of them were very young and charming. So that is not the case. The important aspect here is that the father probably believes that his daughter is not made for the rigors of an ascetic life. She has been born and brought up in all luxuries of life. How can she live the life of an ascetic or a recluse along with her husband with limited means? So he's reluctant, but ultimately the young lady convinces father, and also there is this threat also that he's a rishi, so he knows the mantras, and he his speech in itself is the vibration of truth. So if the rishis are happy with something, and that vibration of truth, because the truth is being manifested through their lived experiences, that can prove to be a huge blessing. But otherwise, if the gets annoyed and curses, then it also has a very strong impact. So it is out of that pressure as well as the convincing of the young lady that he marries. So basically, what I'm trying to suggest is that this tradition is Brahmanical centric. So all kind of chronology lapses, and that creates confusion, and that is why this debate I have just briefly referred to erupts. Now I will come to the most interesting aspect, because here we will try to look at the legends, the myths or the mythological aspect, and also try to look at the philosophical and historical relevances. As I've already told, that August finds mention across periods of time. So he finds mention in the Rig Veda and the other three Vedas. He's there in many of the Brahmanas, Aranyaks, Upanishads, the two epics Ramayana and Mahabharata, and also a number of Purans. His Vedic poetry basically has two themes. The first one deals with the conflict between Indra and Maruts. Now, historically, an allegory has been drawn by social scientists and noted historians like G.S. Ghurye, where they state that it is indicative of the conflict between the Aryas, represented, of course, by Indra, and Dasas, represented by Rudra. Agastya ultimately succeeds in reconciling this conflict, and this is how order is restored. Philosophically, however, and I write at the beginning of our discussion today, I refer to symbolism in the Indian scriptures and Indian works. Indra, if you look at his job profile, is much maligned, though, but his job profile is that he is representative of omniscience. He is being called Sesraksh, having thousand eyes. He's the watch guard. He's right at the doors of that supramental and allows entry as per the ability of individuals. Maruts in themselves, he's also the Indra is also the champion of transformation. Maruts, on the other hand, are shining and brilliant thoughts. Now, what it is indicative of, that Agast, being the great sage, had those brilliant thoughts and he wanted to reach the supermind or the supramental, the supreme consciousness, directly from these thoughts. But when he went to the gates, he was stopped by Indra. This is the conflict which is being spoken of. And he stops and humbly tells him, no, sir, you cannot go right away from thoughts. You cannot jump from this particular field of thoughts or land of thoughts to the supramental. You will have to come through what we now call in the administrative language proper channel. You first need to coordinate these supreme thoughts. These thoughts need to become silent, because once the thoughts become silent, then the truth will dawn. It will manifest. Then only once you reach the state of what Aurobindo calls the overmind, then from that, through the process, you will reach the stage of this supreme consciousness. You cannot directly jump from the stage of glorious thoughts to that of the supramental. This is the conflict which is being spoken of in this context. And to give you another example of the same, to just clarify a bit, there is an attempt which is made by Pavan Putra Hanuman to devour upon the sun. He flies and wants to eat and consume the sun. Who stops him there? It is Indra, who uses his Vajra to stop him. And he says that, boy, you are again jumping from the Maruts. You have all the powers of the Maruts. You are Pavan Putra. You have the power of the Maruts. You have the power of Vayu. But you cannot just jump and reach and take whatever you desires. You need to first prepare yourself. So whatever he could have, Hanuman could have got in form of knowledge by eating up or consuming sun, he gets that knowledge later on. But by becoming a bhakta or disciple of Surya, not by devouring up the Surya. So this is the philosophical relevance. Then there are two conflicting ideologies. Then again, it is mentioned that this conflict in itself between the Indra and the Marut is basically indicative of two conflicting ideologies or lifestyles. And in this context, we have to again look at the fact that he is the first one to bridge the gap between the North and the South. And there is this deep, raging debate which continues even in modern times, which is called that infamous debate of Arya-Dravidian divide. He doesn't use the term Arya or Das anywhere in his narratives or in his recordings. But Agastya uses the phrase Ubhau Varnava, both colors, which again is indicative of promoting mutual understanding and bridging North and South. This is a grand contribution of Rishi Agastya. And as I've told you, he's the first one to do so in that whole galaxy of shining saints and sages of ancient India. The second theme which I wanted to speak of in his poetry actually pertains to the discussions which take place between Lopamudra and Agastya. And the epicenter of these discussions is whether an individual needs to lead a monastic solitary life having pursuit for spirituality, or whether he should take, if he is married, should take the responsibility of a householder's life in raising a family. Again, there is an emphasis in this narrative on synergizing the spiritual and the physical, the spiritual and the mundane. So that again qualifies as one of the significant contributions of Agastya. There are several legends and narratives in the Ramayana where there are references to in meeting Ram, Sita, and Lakshman, as I told you, in Dandakaranya, the southern slopes of Vindhyas. And here Ram praises Agastya that he can do what gods find impossible to perform. And once again, that age old adage of our famous rishis and saints of that ancient lore comes to the forefront, that the gods even cannot attain moksha. They first have to acquire human form and live as a human to attain moksha. So he is somebody who is not neglectful of either the worldly life or the spiritual life. And he tries not only to synergize the north and the south, but also these disparate human emotions. He wants to combine the mundane or the material with the spiritual to bring that harmony, internal harmony. There is a legend of the lowering of Vindhya mountains, which is referred both in the Ramayana as well as in the Mahabharata. And the narrative, just briefly, I'll go through it, goes like that sun used to circumambulate around or do the pradakshina around the Mount Meru, which was the most revered and holy mount, and so did the moon. The Vindhya range got egoistic and it urged both the sun and the moon to do the same with it. And they said that the most holy of the mounts is Mount Meru, that is why we are doing so. So, being annoyed with it, the Vindhya started raising its height to an extent that now the sun or the moon or other living beings either cannot cross it or do the production or circumambulate around it. So, in order to be a savior of this, Agastya visited the Vindhyas and the mountains bowed down to him. And Agastya said, okay, I have some important work to do down south. Let me go and I'll come back. So Vindhyas remain in a bowed down position in reverence. And Agastya fulfills his promise. He returns. But while returning, he takes a different route. He goes through Jagannath Puri. So Vindhyas remain there in a bowed down position, still waiting for Agastya to come so that he can stand. So that is the narrative which is being provided. And in itself, this is again indicative of bringing down all kind of obstacles to unify. That symbolizes this particular aspect. Then there is this legend pertaining to him creating a balance. And when we are looking at this balance, we are looking at both the internal balance as well as the external balance. Now, it has been stated that by residing in the south, Agastya actually balanced the powers of Shiva and the weight of the Kailash and the Mount Meru. There is a philosophical relevance to this particular aspect. What actually led to this imbalance? the philosophical narrative or the scriptural narrative tells us that when Shiva got married to Parvati, there was an imbalance created because all the dignitaries, all the sages, all the saints actually thronged to up north in the mountains to be a part of that marriage ceremony. So the remainder of India was bereft of dignitaries, and there was an imbalance which was created. Who restored that balance? It was August. And how did he do so? And what is the historical relevance of this narrative otherwise? You look around ourselves, all of us, or majority of us who have joined, I believe, are from northern parts of India. This period, this area between the Himalayas and the Ganges and Yamuna, generally it is being seen as the bastion of the saints and sages. All sages, saints of northern India usually reside here in hermitages, in gurukuls, or their own abodes. Very rarely you find somebody from here moving down south. August is one such great dignitary. So again, he creates a balance by going south from north to spread the knowledge and traditions of north to south, and also to synergize and intermingle there to form a harmony. This is the relevance of this particular legend. Then there is also this legend of Ram, Lakshman, and Sita visiting Agastya, and there Agastya provides him with a divine bow and an arrow, and tells Ram that to destroy an evil like Ravana, you will have to use them. Now, we have just discussed earlier that Ravan was a relative of Rishi Agastya. But he provides the divine bow and arrow to the arch rival of Ravan. It is again relevant in the sense that here Agastya appears as an embodiment of ethics and morality. Whatever is ethical, whatever is moral, he is supportful of that. He is in the support of truth, not in the support of falsehood, irrespective of the proximity of relation to that individual who is in the wrong. Okay. In the Mahabharata, there is this legend of Agastya killing the demons Vatapi and Ilavalla. And why does he kill them? Because they are instrumental in assassination of 9,000 innocent men. Here he can be seen as a liberator. Agastya is a scholar. Agastya is a saint, but he is also a warrior who cannot withstand the evil and eliminates it. So he is a liberator and a savior in this context. There's a legend of a war between Indra and Vritrasur. Vritrasur dies, gets defeated and dies, but all his fellow demons, the Asuras, they hid themselves in the sea. And at this time, all the gods who knew that if they are not eliminated, they will multiply, and then will pose, all the demons will pose the similar kind of threat as they were posing previously. So they request to Saint Augustine, who drinks down the entire sea, so that the demons who are hiding there beneath are exposed, and then they are decimated and eliminated by the gods. What is the philosophical explanation? There are references in the Vedic hymns and even later in the epics and in the Puranas that both Lopamudra and Rishi Agastya are digging a cave They are groping in darkness and are continuously digging. What they are digging? They are digging for the sun. Sun, not S-O-N, S-U-N, the light which is hidden. And ultimately they reach there, they unearth it, and then the light shines. It shines. It is symbolic of the fact that they are not dismissive or neglectful of that light, that spark, that fire which I spoke right at the initial stage, which is there existing in this world. What Aurobindo later on calls the life divine, life on earth, life of not a withdrawn recluse or an ascetic, but living like a normal human being within the society and still remaining detached. How can you think in terms of moving away from this mundane world and achieving something through only suppression? Vishwamitra tries so for 80,000 years, but a Menaka comes and all his meditation and contemplation vanishes because he's somebody who suppresses that power. What Agastya looks at is the transformation of power. This is precisely what Indra speaks of when he tries to jump from the thoughts, the splendid thoughts, to the stage of the supramental. And he says that you please, sir, you please prepare yourself first. Because Indra is also the champion of transformation. So that is something which is being emphasized here, that it is not suppression, but either elimination or transformation of the falsehood by unearthing the hidden truth in this mundane world, this material world. So he's somebody who bridges, as I spoke earlier also, between the mundane and the spiritual. He integrates them. There is also this legend in the Mahabharata pertaining to the inverted ancestors, that वो जाता है और देखता है कि उनके जो पित्र हैं वो उल्टा लटके हुए हैं और यातना सहन कर रहे हैं, and he asks them what is the reason. I have done nothing wrong, and they tell him that we can attain salvation only when you beget an offspring, you beget a son. And as I told you right at the inception stage, while I was trying to describe who is an rishi, a rishi is not bound by any particular ideology, is not stuck to a particular viewpoint or a doctrine. He is flexible and he accepts and he says, no, I'm here for the welfare. If I'm here for the welfare of the masses, I'm also here for the welfare of my ancestors as well. So he says, okay, point well taken, and I will then marry. And there are so many legends. I'll skip those legends pertaining to how he creates Lopamudra, and then the wife of the king of Vidarbha is expecting, and then how she begets her, and then she's being created primarily to ultimately get married to the sage, and so they get a son, and because of him the liberation takes place. So basically what I wanted to tell you is that the rishis of this time were not somebody who were having any refrain or inhibition about leading a successful material life, right? So he's also been mentioned. Not only these are the Brahmanical traditions I spoke of, primarily of northern India. There is he's been referred in Purans, and he's also been referred in the Tamil literature. There is a reference to a legend pertaining to the annoyance of Kartikeya. the son of Shiva. He is being annoyed with his parents who scold him, and he moves down south, and he says that I'll restore the justice here. But somebody to whom in great injustice, according to him, has been done, he will do justice, but he would remain aggressive. So life would be unjust to somebody who believes that injustice has been committed to him, and especially if it has been done by the parents. That is his thought. So he makes the land bereft of people whom he believes are unjust in southern India. That is again one of the imbalances which is being restored, which is ultimately is remedied by Agastya. So Agastya goes there and he meets Kartikeya, who in southern India is being known as Murugan. And he ultimately succeeds in controlling the anger of Kartikeya and pacifying him. So here he is being seen as a savior and also a restorer of justice and also a creator of balance. In the excuse me, Tamil text Purnanuru, I beg your pardon, uh, there is this reference to his migrating to the south, migration to south, that is being mentioned in it. And there are references that this led to, excuse me, let me have some water. Okay. He spreads the Vedic culture and Sanskrit in southern portions of India. He also bridges the gap, and he spreads agriculture, irrigation, and augments the Tamil language in southern India. He's supposed to have pioneered these are mythological legends, the first Sangam period of a duration of 4,440 years, and also took active participation in second Sangam, which spanned across 3,700 years. In the Tirumantiram, he's been mentioned as somebody who perfected and loved both Sanskrit and Tamil. Here he is being depicted as a symbol of harmony, integration, and learning. We have already discussed that he is being mentioned in the South as a Siddha, which directly and indirectly means that he perfected his knowledge of natural and spiritual words, something which also gets shown or depicted through the legends of North India. He is somebody who integrates and harmonizes the philosophical and the practical domains. In the Buddhist literature, interestingly, uh, he's being shown as somebody who's a master of both Sanskrit and Tamil grammar. But at the same time, it is stated that he learned poetics from Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha to be. So, I mean, he's multidimensional. It is not that he's being represented only in the scriptures or the legends of North. You find him in the legends of South. You find him in the Brahmanical sources. You find references to him in the Buddhist sources and the different variations of the two epics, which span across the entire length and breadth or every nook and corner of undivided Indian southern subcontinent, Indian subcontinent. As far as the legacy of and another important aspect, he finds references in the Jataka tales as well, which are Buddhist texts. As far as the legacy is concerned, you find that there are several temples which are there dedicated to Agastya. Sri Agastya Temple at Papanasham, Tirunelveli. Sri Lobamudra Samedha Agastya Temple in the Madurai district. There are number of statues which are accredited to him. There is a statue of his town Agastya Muni. I've already spoken of it in Uttarakhand. In the Dashavatar temple at Devgarh, is on the borders of Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, you find his statues. Mallikarjun temple and the Parvati temple in Karnataka, again you see, you find his sculptures. The Chalukya Shaivite temples also, there are, they abound in number of sculptures representing Agastya. In the literature, the two epics of South India, famous epics, Silapaddikaram of Elango Adigal and also Manimekhalai of Satanar, frequently refer to him. Then the Bala Ramayana of Rajshekhar also refers to him on quite a number of occasions. He's being also credited with introducing a form of martial art. He's been called the founder of Silambam, which is a martial art of Tamil Nadu, and also somebody who is also seen as the founder of Varmam, which is the ancient science of healing. Something related to the Siddha form of medicine, which again is seen as being founded by him, that system being founded by him, and what it emphasizes upon? Integration and harmony of the body with the mind, vata pitta kapha, in the exact sequence, how they need to be harmonized. And this is the beginnings of this, probably marks the beginnings of what we currently call acupressure. That what points need to be pressurized at a particular point of time to bring back that harmony. So these are some of the important facets of Agastya. I mean, what is the time which is at my disposal, ma'am? Maybe 5 more minutes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
Okay.
you can wind up.
I'll just speak of one or two things which I left, and
Yes.
I still am in I'm still in a position to remember them and recollect, because it would be unjust on my part if I said that I will speak of these things a little later and then now I neglect or ignore them. One of the aspect is that when you look philosophically or through the lived experiences of these rishis, what are their gifts to us, which is which have come down to us? One of them is this gift of the fire. Of course, I'm not only speaking in context of this external fire. That is also a manifestation of something. But that something which we are speaking of, it has a core internal value also. So that fire which it speaks of is the creative fire. It is not coincidental or mere chance that the first hymn in the Rig Veda is dedicated to God Agni. That Agni is not that externalized Agni, that is the outer manifestation. But what it symbolizes is the creative fire, that fire to move ahead, to make progress. Agni has come from the term ag, move ahead. And it is also related to that urge to, to reach near the ultimate. Mind you, Agast, or for that matter, other rishis, are not inclined towards becoming the ultimate. For them, that journey towards perfection is also quite a bit of fun. They are enjoying that journey also. Goal, that ultimate goal is not to become divine, but to reach and to understand and realize that ultimate. So, for him, there is nothing which is ultimate, the, but it is just the urge to reach and discover what is valuable. That Agni in itself, that fire, हम बात साधारण बोलचाल में भी करते हैं ना, when we urge somebody, we say Do you have that fire? वो आग है क्या? So what is it? It is that divine will. Do you have the will? Do you have that urge to aspire? Do you have that urge to make progress? Knowledge is important, but if the will is lacking, you can employ the knowledge only to fill your stomach, nothing more. It is this divine will which needs to be strengthened, and once it is strengthened, then you will make ahead and make progress. Avigyatam vijanata. He who knows it does not know it. So there is no point in reaching the ultimate. What is significant is this endless pursuit and search with enthusiasm. We see that fire in August, as I told you. And the, I mean, in this context, I will also speak about that him from the Bredaranya Upanishad. It talks about asatoma sadgamaya, tamsoma jyotirgamaya. That is the journey which is being spoken of. Rishis were seeking light amid darkness. They were not escapists. They were not escaping or trying to escape or neglect or abstain from this mundane world. They accepted it in totality and wanted to transform their life into a life divine, a life worth living through the integration of and harmonizing of the various aspects of life. From them, we inherit this divine will, that fire. Towards the end, I will talk about, we have discussed about the restoring of the balance, so I will not speak any more of this. He's somebody who needs to be credited also for one more fact. Those thoughts which come, which are being generated, he also is not only a researcher, but he also is somebody who documents all his thoughts in the Vedas for posterity to know the reality. The Vedic path or the approach is an attempt at enlarging, widening, and letting the mind grow towards its own higher possibilities. It emphasizes on the fact that spiritual transformation needs to take place before supramental transformation, something which I have spoken of in the last half an hour or so. Right. So this is all I wanted to tell or share with you. There is towards the end, I'll talk about only of two things. While he meets Ram, he speaks and he states, August states in Dandakaranya, demons do not love men, therefore men should love men. This is one of his biggest, this was one of his biggest motives or mottos, and this is what he emphasizes upon. Another important aspect which Aurobindo speaks of when he uh, describes August, the divine or the God has dawned upon this earth and has become human. Now is the turn of human to become divine. This is what August attempts through his endeavors, through his adventures, and all the legends, all the narratives have this inherent core which should be emphasized, and at least it should not be ignored. And with it, I believe I have consumed my quota of time, and I know it for a fact that if am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
thank you so much, sir. Uh,
Yes, sir.
thank you very much, sir, for a very insightful lecture. The session has enlightened us immensely about Sage Agast and his contributions in Indian history. As Sir said, the contribution of Sage Agast to the सिद्धा system of medicine, भारतीय चिकित्सा भी जिसको बोलते हैं, classical Tamil and in classical Tamil literature, and also his contribution in the cultural unity of the nation. Additionally, he is known for his um, unparalleled contribution of various fields, and it revealed as the first grammarian in the Tamil language in South India. So, and now I would request to participants, if any one wants to ask question to sir, so please ask. Anyone? किसी को कुछ पूछना है विषय से संबंधित? आई थिंक अनिल जी, यू वांट, आप चाहते हैं कुछ पूछना? नहीं. Okay.
No, thanks, ma'am.
So, moving ahead, now I request our colleague, Dr. Vikas Singhal. He is the Deputy Director at Regional Center Delhi 2, to propose formal vote of thanks to Sir.
थैंक यू मीना मैम। सर ने जितने डिटेल में अगस्त से ऋषि सर के पूरे जो कंट्रीब्यूशंस के बारे में हमारे सभी दर्शकों को बताया, मैं जो प्रोफेसर पंकज शर्मा जी हैं, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एंशिएंट इंडियन हिस्ट्री कल्चर एंड आर्कियोलॉजी, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ इलाहाबाद में एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर है, उनका धन्यवाद करूंगा, क्योंकि इतने डिटेल में, इतने अच्छे से और इतने इंटरेस्ट के साथ, जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि सेशन के टाइमिंग के भी बाद उन्होंने पूरा डिटेल में बताना एक उचित समझा और हमें सभी को काफ़ी अच्छी जानकारी दी। कोई भी प्रोग्राम होता है तो उसके लिए सर्वप्रथम मैं धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा हमारी इग्नू की अथॉरिटीज़ और हमारे जो सीनियर रीजनल डायरेक्टर हैं डॉक्टर मनोरमा मैम, क्योंकि उनके पर्सनल इंटरेस्ट के कारण ये प्रोग्राम हम करा पाए। मैम ने, मुझे याद है, जैसे ही वो मेल आया तो पहले दिन से इंटरेस्ट लिया कि ये बहुत अच्छा टॉपिक है, अच्छे स्पीकर को हम लेंगे और हम इस पर अपना एक वेबिनार कराएंगे जिससे हमारे जितने भी स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो लाभान्वित हों। कोई भी प्रोग्राम करने के लिए प्रोग्राम कोऑर्डिनेटर का रोल बहुत अच्छा होता है और डॉक्टर मीना मैम जो हैं असिस्टेंट रीजनल डायरेक्टर आरसी दिल्ली 2 की, इन्होंने ये जिम्मेदारी ली और इतने अच्छे से पूरे प्रोग्राम में मैं देख रहा था कि मैडम पूरी एक्टिवली विद कैमरा ऑन कर रही थी, तो ये भी बहुत अच्छी बात है। और पर्सनल इंटरेस्ट के साथ उन्होंने फ्लायर बनाए, स्टूडेंट्स को इन्फॉर्म किया, तो उनका भी मैं धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा। जितने भी हमारे एकेडमिक कोलिग्स हैं जो इस प्रोग्राम में बने रहे, इसको अटेंड किया और किसी न किसी तरीके से इस प्रोग्राम के डिससेमिनेशन में उन्होंने हेल्प किया, उन सबका मैं धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा। इसके अलावा जितने भी हमारे स्टूडेंट्स जो हमें सुन रहे हैं, जिन्होंने इस प्रोग्राम को सुना, इसके अलावा जो हमारे एलएससी के या आरसी के अदर स्टाफ हैं जो इस प्रोग्राम में जुड़े रहे, उन सभी का धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा। थैंक्स टू एवरीवन। धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू विकास जी। थैंक यू सर। थैंक यू एवरीवन। Thank you. Meeting is over now. Thank you, everyone.